Fire, the first weapon of mankind, the destroyer of worlds. For millennia, humans have wielded flames not just for warmth or light but as instruments of terror. What you're witnessing is the aftermath of one of history's most terrifying naval weapons, a substance so devastating, so mysterious, that its very formula remains lost to time. They called it Greek fire. Dramatic recreation, Byzantine ships launching streams of green, unquenchable flames across dark waters. Developed by the Byzantine Empire around the 7th century, Greek fire was a nightmare made manifest. Unlike ordinary flames, this hellish concoction actually ignited when it touched water. Imagine the horror of enemy sailors watching their escape route become their funeral pyre. Close-up of terrified faces illuminated by green fire. Historians believe it contained naphtha and quicklime substances that turned the seed itself into liquid death. But the exact recipe died with its creators, taking with it the secret of humanity's first chemical weapon of mass destruction. The camera pulls back to reveal the vast scope of destruction. This was merely the beginning. For centuries, fire remained a weapon of opportunity, of desperation. But as mankind entered the industrial age, our capacity for mechanized horror would transform flames from a tool of siege into an instrument of industrialized terror. Mist clings to muddy, cratered no man's land. The camera moves through waterlogged trenches lined with sandbags and barbed wire. The year was 1915. The Great War had already claimed millions of lives, but the worst was yet to come. In the fetid trenches of Verdun, German engineers were about to unleash something that would haunt the nightmares of a generation. Ominous mechanical sounds echo through the trenches. They called it the Flammenwerfer, the Flamethrower. A device so terrifying in its simplicity, so brutal in its effectiveness, that it would redefine the very nature of warfare. The early models required two operators, one to carry the fuel, another to direct the stream of liquid fire. 70 pounds of death strapped to their backs, they would emerge from the earth like demons from hell itself. The operators moved toward no man's land, their shadows long and menacing, but fire is an indiscriminate killer. During one horrific incident, 20 French soldiers perished not from enemy flames, but from their own weapon when the wind suddenly shifted. The fire they thought would protect them became their executioner. A wall of orange flame erupts across the battlefield, consuming everything in its path. Those caught in the fire faced a death beyond imagination. The flames didn't just burn, they consumed the very air around them. Soldiers in bunkers and pillboxes found themselves gasping for oxygen that was no longer there, suffocating in their own shelters as the fire devoured the atmosphere itself. Even those who escaped the direct flames weren't safe. The smoke carried deadly carbon monoxide, silently poisoning anyone who tried to flee. Soldiers would collapse minutes later, their lungs filled with toxic death. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. The mere sight of a flamethrower on the battlefield could cause entire units to abandon their positions. It wasn't just a weapon, it was terror made manifest. By World War II, the flamethrower had evolved into something far more deadly. No longer the cumbersome two-man operation of the Great War, these new instruments of destruction could be wielded by a single soldier, carrying an M2 flamethrower. But its true power wasn't in its range, it was in its ability to reach the unreachable, to destroy what conventional weapons could not touch. The Japanese had created fortress networks so impregnable, so deeply buried, that artillery and explosives barely scratched their surfaces. Only one weapon could reach into these underground labyrinths and drag out their defenders. But operating a flamethrower was a death sentence. The moment an operator stepped into action, every enemy rifle, every sniper, every machine gun focused on one target. They became magnets for death, carrying liquid fire on their backs like a beacon screaming, "Kill me first." On Iwo Jima, flamethrower units suffered a casualty rate of 92%. Think about that number. Out of every 100 men who carried these weapons into battle, only 8 would return home. And if capture was worse than death, flamethrower operators knew it intimately. They were seen as bringers of the cruelest death imaginable. Enemy soldiers showed them no mercy. The M2 Flamethrower was a marvel of deadly engineering. 2 tanks, one filled with thickened fuel like napalm, the other with pressurized nitrogen. A simple trigger mechanism that could unleash hell for 7 to 10 seconds at a time. 7 to 10 seconds. That's all it took to clear an enemy position, to transform living beings into ash and memory. The operator would pull the trigger, and a stream of liquid fire would leap from the nozzle, turning everything it touched into an inferno. But the true horror wasn't in the immediate death. It was in the aftermath, the smell that clung to everything, the sounds that echoed long after the flames died, the knowledge that you had become something more than a soldier, you had become an agent of apocalypse. As the war progressed, militaries began mounting flamethrowers on vehicles. The M101 flamethrower tank, based on the Sherman, could bring mobile hellfire to any battlefield. The crew remained protected inside their armored shell while dispensing liquid death from their mechanized chariot. Later, in Vietnam, they created the Zippo tanks, M113 armored personnel carriers equipped with flamethrowers. Named after the popular lighter brand, these vehicles carried larger fuel reserves, enabling them to sustain their deadly fire over longer periods, but armor couldn't protect them from becoming priority targets. Every anti-tank weapon, every mine, every grenade was aimed at these mechanical demons. The crews inside knew they were driving mobile funeral pyres. As the 20th century progressed, the world began to grapple with an uncomfortable question. In our quest to become more efficient killers, had we lost our humanity? Some argued that flamethrowers, despite their horrific appearance, might actually cause less suffering. The intense heat and rapid oxygen depletion could lead to immediate unconsciousness, sparing victims the prolonged agony of other weapons. But others pointed to the psychological trauma, the permanent disfigurement, the way fire seemed to violate something fundamental about human dignity. The flames didn't just destroy bodies, they destroyed souls. In 1980, the world finally acted. The Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons established guidelines restricting arms that cause excessive harm or unnecessary suffering. While not explicitly banning flamethrowers, it created a framework that led most nations to quietly remove them from their arsenals. Today, the use of flamethrowers in warfare is rare. Most military forces have abandoned them, recognizing that some weapons cross lines that should never be crossed. But some countries may still maintain them in their inventories, hidden away like shameful secrets. The flamethrower's legacy lives on in other forms: thermobaric weapons, incendiary munitions, white phosphorus. Humanity's creativity in finding new ways to burn our enemies seems limitless, but perhaps the most chilling aspect of the flamethrower's history isn't its effectiveness as a weapon, it's what it revealed about us. That we could create something so terrible, deploy it so widely, and sleep soundly knowing we possessed the power to burn our enemies alive. The men who carried flamethrowers, who operated them, who died because of them may haunt our collective memory. They were ordinary people asked to do extraordinary, terrible things. Some were heroes who used these weapons to save their comrades, to break sieges, to end battles that might have dragged on for months. Others were simply following orders, carrying fire into hell because someone told them to. But all of them, every operator who strapped 70 pounds of liquid fire to his back, every crew member who climbed into a flame tank, every engineer who designed these instruments of terror, they are part of a story that reveals something fundamental about human nature. We are capable of unimaginable cruelty, but we are also capable of recognizing that cruelty and choosing to turn away from it. The flamethrower's gradual disappearance from modern warfare isn't just about military efficiency, it's about moral evolution. The flamethrower remains one of the creepiest inventions in military history, not because of what it could do, but because of what it represents. The moment when warfare became so mechanized, so divorced from human emotion, that we could reduce the destruction of human life to the simple pull of a trigger. In the end, perhaps that's the most terrifying legacy of all, not the weapon itself, but the ease with which we created it, deployed it, and for decades accepted it as a normal part of human conflict. The flames have been extinguished, the operators have gone home, but the shadows they cast continue to flicker in the corners of our collective conscience, reminding us of the thin line between civilization and savagery. The flamethrower may be gone from most battlefields, but it will never be gone from our nightmares. Because some weapons don't just kill bodies, they burn themselves into the soul of humanity itself.